Good morning to Keep the Faith with Pastor Frank. I pray you're doing well this morning. So let me know if. Good morning, Brother Lee. Is there still an echo? Okay. Let's see if that's better. Good morning, Brother James. Good to see you. Good morning, Sheila. It's good to see you online. Good morning, Mario. Good to see you online. Good morning, Cheryl. It's good to see you online. Sister Liz, good to see you online. Sister Gail, Brother Lewis, it's good to see y'all with us this morning. Sister Crystal, it's good to see you online. Okay. Still hear an echo? Well, let me try one other thing. Well, all right. Let me try that. Does that help? Well, I appreciate all of you joining me. I just started having technical difficulties again. Not too long after I unplugged my computer to use it at church on Sundays. So I guess I got something set wrong. But anyway, this morning I wanted to talk about Jesus feeding the 5,000. It's a story you probably all know quite a bit about. So let's just go and we'll look at in Matthew chapter 14 and I'll start with verse 13, Matthew chapter 14. John the Baptist has just been killed and buried, and verse 13 says, as soon as Jesus heard the news, he left in a boat to a remote area alone. But the crowds heard where he was and headed and followed on foot from many towns. Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick. That evening, the disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves. But Jesus says, that isn't necessary. You feed them. But we have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered. Bring them here, he said. Then he told the people to sit down on the grass. Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, looked up toward heaven, and blessed them. Then breaking loaves into pieces, he gave the bread to the disciples, who distributed it to the people. They all ate as much as they wanted, and afterward the disciples picked up 12 baskets of leftovers. About 5,000 men were fed that day, in addition to all the women and children. So, a couple of things that I'd like to mention about this. Jesus got to a place after he heard the news about John the Baptist that he left in a boat to be alone. He just wanted some alone time, but it turned out that so many people knew where he was going, they followed him. And a lot of times we find ourselves where we may need some alone time, or we may feel like we need some alone time and may really need some alone time. But people know where we are and they seek us out. Now, Jesus saw the crowd, and it says he had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. And so he was working, instead of being alone, he was working for the rest of the day. And then it gets to the evening, and he's there. His disciples come to him and say, let's send these people away. It's getting late. They need to go somewhere where they can buy food. They can go to the villages and buy food. Now, here is what Jesus said in the New Living Testament. He said, that's not necessary. You feed them. Now, I imagine if I was one of the disciples there that day and Jesus told me that, I would have almost panicked. But Jesus told him, he said, look, what do you have? We have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Bring them here. So, and he told the people to sit down. And Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish and looked up toward heaven and blessed them. And then breaking the loaves into pieces, he gave the bread to the disciples, who distributed it to the people. So as he continued to break the bread, he continued to fill up baskets and continued to feed the people. Now, it says about 5,000 men were fed that day, in addition to all the women and children. Now, I'm going to guess, if things are then like they are now, that there were probably about as many women as there were men, not counting the children. So there's no telling how many people were actually there that day that ate, but we call it the feeding of the 5,000. But, and so even after everybody ate all they wanted, they still picked up 12 baskets of leftovers. So here's the thing that I want to get across to you this morning. Not so much deep spiritual truth as it is just a fact of life. Sometimes when we feel like we need to be alone, and we'll find out that that's one of the times that people will seek us out, is when we feel like we need to be alone. But the truth is, even though we may need to be alone, and if you'll read down through the rest of this, you'll find out that Jesus did get some alone time. We'll talk about this in the morning, but Jesus did get some time alone with the Father, and which is necessary for us to continue to be able to go through the things that we go through, and is to have some alone time. But it may not be when we first feel like that we need to get some space, or we need to have some, because ministry is always calling and people are always in need. So always remember, don't let anything get in the way of the compassion you have for people. And that compassion grows as you allow yourself to feel the need of the people more than a lot of times we protect ourselves. We don't want to see any more need. We don't want to see any more crisis. We don't want to see anything else happen like happened in Uvalde. We don't want to see all of this stuff. It's just almost too much for us, almost overwhelming. But we've got to have compassion for people, and we've got to continue to minister. So whenever we have opportunity, and this is what I think basis of ministry is opportunity and willingness to serve. So one of the things that we need to realize is, even though Jesus wanted space to be alone, he had compassion on the people and he ministered to them. I like what he did with the disciples here. He gave them a chance to participate in a miracle. And I want you to understand, if you continue to follow Christ and continue to serve him, he will give you an opportunity to participate in a miracle. You may not be the main player. You may not be the one doing the praying, or you may not be the one. You may be there and just in a support capacity, but God will give you an opportunity to participate in a miracle. And the number of people that were fed, that's just astronomical. It's crazy. I love it, the way Jesus does things in abundance. And he always doesn't give just enough. He always gives more than enough. So whenever you pray and you seek the Lord, always be willing to accept more than what you expected. So this morning, this is a faith story, and I just wanted to encourage you to keep the faith and continue to serve the Lord, no matter sometimes if you feel a little overwhelmed, because God will give you a space where you can get some time to where you can be alone with God, and you can get some rest, and you can really enjoy your relationship with God. And I tell you what, when you get to participate in a miracle, you really get filled with the power and the spirit and the joy of the Lord. So I just want to encourage you this morning, keep the faith and continue to serve, and serve joyfully, so that people can see that the God that you serve is not only a healer, he's also your provider. Keep the faith. God bless.